Hi, this is Tony Kent, and this is another episode of Tony Kent Writes and Cross-Examines. Today, we're going to be asking some very unimpressive questions
of a very unimpressive man.
of Mr. ABIR MUKHERJEE, the brilliant author who is behind the WYNDHAM Banerjee series. We're going to be talking all about WYNDHAM Banerjee. We're going to be talking all about ABIR's recent nomination for one of the most prestigious awards in crime fiction. So, ABIR, thank you very much for coming along. How are you dealing with the lockdown?
Thank you for having me, Tony. No, we're doing all right, to be honest. I can't complain. It's been a bit tough being, stuck in the house with the kids for so long. But other than that, no, we can't complain. We've been very lucky. How about you? How's the family? I know you were ill.
Family's good. I was sick. Yeah, I was sick. It didn't go away. Well, it went away and then it came back. It's very, very annoying. It's at some point I'm going to have to speak to my publishers about the effect it's had upon how much writing I've got done. They're not going to be particularly pleased about that. But yes, it's been great. We've got Joseph here, our 2-year-old son, 2 next week. It's been great to spend extra time with him. We've been taking the advantage of it, really. But as writers, you and I think, are we're quite used to long periods of being locked indoors, aren't we? So.
That's right. The only difference is now when I have a drink by myself, there's a video camera on with other people on the end of the line.
Yeah, and you've got an excuse to drink at home.
Yes, exactly.
Now, I'm so used to telling people that I can't come out, but now I'm just happy that no one's asking me to come out.
That's it. To be fair, I mean, it's been so long since anybody asked me to go out for a drink.
It's just a perfect excuse.
Yes,
I was going to say, I'm very happy to have you on for a number of reasons. One of them is, and I don't mind saying this aloud and on record, the series, WYNDHAM Banerjee series, is absolutely one of my favourite series to read. 4 books. I'm desperately waiting for the 5th, so you need to hurry up. But the other reason is most people that come on here come to talk about contemporary fiction, and just so everyone is aware, if they don't know already, what you write is historical crime fiction.
That's right.
Why is that?
As I say, I'm very old to start with. But it's also partly laziness. I just don't understand forensics, and I can't come up with ways of turning off a mobile phone so that it doesn't interrupt the plot. But also, I mean, it's because the stories I really wanted to tell are in the past. I'm sort of fascinated by this period of the British in India, because I think so much of our current day society and Indian society today is formed by that period, which was quite unique in history. And really, it's not a period that we learn about, or we didn't learn about when I was at school.
Yeah,
we did talk about it. Yeah, I mean, when we did talk about it, it was, we looked at it through rose-tinted specs. It was like, tea on the lawn with the viceroy. Yeah. And really, I wanted to look at that period, and I wanted to see it for what it was, almost as a journey of, finding out about my own past. And what better way to spend time than explaining it to other people? But I wanted
and killing people in the meantime.
That's right. You've got to kill people, otherwise, what's the point? Yeah, and I didn't want to write a history book because I wanted people to read it. And so, yeah, I was just very, very lucky that when I came to write them, it seemed that people were wanting to read them. They were wanting to read about this period in history and about these 2 characters whom you've mentioned. Sam Wyndham and Surendranath Banerjee, who is known in the books as Surendranath. Because his English colleagues can't pronounce his name. And you've asked in the past, where did you come up with that name from?
It's one of my favourite names in all of books. It really is.
Well, you know what? I can't take the credit. There was actually a man called Surendranath Banerjee, and the British named him Surendranath, and they gave him a knighthood. And he was known as Sir Surendranath Banerjee. You can't make it up. No. So I found this name in a book about 25 years ago when I was at university, and it just stuck with me. And I thought, I've got to use that one day. I never had any ideas I would write, but when I did come to write, I thought, well, now is the time to use that name.
It's great to have those things, isn't it? Those things you can remember from years ago that I think sometimes you even forget that they're from years ago and you think you made them up. So it's lucky that you can remember that.
I don't remember any of my actual degree, but I don't remember that.
For a long time in my sort of childhood years, I was convinced I'd written the song "The Voice" from the 1980s because I'd heard it once. Yeah, I'd heard it once and then didn't hear it for years, and I convinced myself by the end that I'd invented this and that I was some sort of musical prodigy. And then I heard it
maybe
again.
Maybe in some parallel universe, Tony Kent has actually sung that and is like a world famous pop star instead of a world famous author. Who knows?
Well, he sung it in karaoke in this universe, and very bad. So going back to the books.
No. Before that, important
Sorry.
question: is that your karaoke go-to song?
It is not. No, my karaoke go-to song is a mix of Jailhouse Rock or That's Life by Frank Sinatra, all depending on how much Sambuca I have consumed.
Can you get them into a medley?
I can get them into a medley that doesn't work. and what
again,
about
alcohol?
What's your karaoke go-to?
Well, there's again, like you have several. I've got King of the Road by the Proclaimers.
Oh,
well, their version of it. It's many people have done it.
So you can speak it with your accent.
To me, it's King of the Road is their song, and otherwise it would be like you. It would be a Frank Sinatra song. But it would be "I Got You Under My Skin," which is a terrible song to sing if you can't sing.
Yes.
And sometimes I'll also go into one or two of my dad's favourites, which were "And I Love You So" by Perry Como, which is a classic. Okay. And who was the other guy? "Not Until the Next Time" by a country and western singer, and I've forgotten his name. Somebody tell me, but that's a brilliant song.
It's quite weird, isn't it, when you sing your parents' songs? Because if I'm honest, a lot of my musical taste comes from my parents. I know nothing post 1980, really. Hence thinking that I wrote the voice. It's quite. I sometimes try and sing. The thing with Frank Sinatra is, if you can't sing at all, then it's a terrible thing to go to, because although he doesn't sound like he's singing, he's really singing. But the one who sounds like he can't sing is Rod Stewart. Until you try to sing Rod Stewart, it's really hard. My mum loves Rod Stewart.
I have never attempted to sing Rod Stewart.
I have. It's terrible. It's just not. It's not good at all. He can really sing in his own way, and he doesn't sound like he can. But anyway, let's get.
I was going to ask you one more question. Oh no, you can't.
No, go.
I was going to ask you, do you have like a favourite karaoke bar?
Oh God, yes. I used to have a karaoke bar that I used to go to all of the time. It's no longer there. It was called Eat Drink. It was a Chinese restaurant. It was just off Bishopsgate in London. It was down a dark alley where Jack the Ripper had killed someone. And it was just a Chinese restaurant, and next door to it was this little room. And there was no stage. Everyone just sang from the floor. Yeah. It was full of drunken city boys and drunken barristers. And so that was how I found it. And on my 30th
I think
birthday,
I've been in there, actually.
I think you probably have. On my 30th birthday, I hired the entire place out, and everyone just came along, sang karaoke, and just ate random Chinese buffet. So yeah, it's not there anymore, unfortunately. But that was my favourite.
Do you know what? This is good. I'm enjoying this because I think you've interviewed so many people, and people know more about you. So I'm quite happy with this.
But we're going to have to move on to your books, because we're talking to you for a reason. And it's because, we're talking about I've lost my track of myself. We're talking about the Wyndham Banerjee series. I want to know about Wyndham. Where did he come from? Because I kind of get a little bit more where Banerjee came from, but where did Wyndham come from?
Do you know what? I couldn't rightly tell you. I'll tell you when he came to me. I was sitting in the jacuzzi in the gym. This is a long time ago. This is in 2013. Yeah, I was sitting.
This is a decadent inspiration.
Could you not find that? Where do you get inspiration?
The shower.
The shower. See, I get it, or I used to get it in the sauna. Well, not the steam room, but the sauna at the gym. It was just the right temperature. That sort of, creative juices, for want of a better word.
It's incredible, isn't it? That there is, everyone has their place. And
yeah, but since we've moved house, I can't go to that. I don't go to that gym anymore, so I don't get any ideas.
The next book's going to be terrible.
Yeah. What was the question? Oh, you were asking about Sam. So yeah, Sam came to me in the jacuzzi back in 2013, and he came, pretty much fully formed in terms of, I knew he was English, but I knew he was damaged. I knew he was a cynic, and despite being English, he does have this sort of Glaswegian gallows humor, which is what gets him through life. It's things are so bad you got to laugh about them. So he has this very dark humor. Which he uses as a coping mechanism. And to be honest, Surendranath came pretty much the same day in terms of, as a character, they almost came together at once. And they both really reflect different sides of my personality, because, to be honest with you, a lot of what we do is just therapy for ourselves.
And wish fulfillment.
Yes, it is. So Sam is more my sort of cynical British side, and Surendranath is more my sort of more optimistic, younger, naive side. But he also incorporates the Indian side. So he will ask questions that Sam wouldn't, because Sam takes them for granted. And similarly, Sam asks questions that Suren wouldn't. And I think when you sit between cultures, you do that. When you grow up between two cultures, you can point to the, sometimes the hypocrisies, sometimes the idiosyncrasies of the two cultures, which most people would take for granted. And so the two characters allow me to do that. They're really just, two sides to my personality. The only other thing is that Surendranath has my Indian chicken legs. He's got very skinny legs. But again, that's just therapy again. So
yeah, because he's a heroic character, Surendranath.
Absolutely,
he brings the action, doesn't he? And
he's heroic in his own way, I would say. Yes, he's heroic in a very Bengali way, in a cerebral way. He wouldn't win many fights, and he doesn't win many fights.
Yeah, but he's perfectly willing to get in them.
Absolutely. Oh God, yeah. He's the first one in.
Well, that's always my idea of heroism. If you're the guy that's probably going to lose, but you're still willing to do it, that's way more heroic than being a guy my size, slapping around a little bit.
It's romantic as well. It's romantic, and when I was doing the research for these books, you look at the part of India that books are set is Bengal, and we had this history of the most romantic, ridiculous freedom fighters you've ever met.
Yeah.
So there was one occasion, and I've been in the police museum, and there's a letter from these terrorists. These terrorists robbed a street because they needed funds for like guns and stuff.
Yeah.
And they sent a letter to the residents of the street saying, dear residents, thank you for your contribution to the fighting fund. Your money has been placed on account with our accounts department and will earn interest at 5% per annum, which we paid back to you on the advent of an independent India. But if you go to the police, we'll kill you.
It's incredible, isn't it?
And it's just like, it's the most ridiculous thing you'll ever see. But that's what it was like. These people were like, they were middle class romantic boys who thought they could do terrorism and freedom fighting.
But that's kind of, they're the people that do it back in those days. They're the people who did it. Because if you go back to the Easter Rising in Ireland, in Dublin, those guys paid their bus fare to the GPO. They went to the GPO and they actually paid the bus fare. With guns.
Thing. And the two struggles really had a lot of connections and parallels. So there was an attack on the GPO in Calcutta by the Bengali guys. Is a similar thing. But there was also.
I was about to say that could be a very good Irish joke, couldn't it? Got the wrong GPO. I say that as an Irishman.
Damn it. But there was also this case where these guys decided they were going to rob a train, and they didn't rob any of the Indian passengers. There's like two white people on the train. It's like, how much have you got? They didn't rob anyone else. But there were all these stories of these, and they got executed. A lot of them. They're the most ridiculous. I mean, at least the Irish knew what they were doing, but these Bengalis didn't have a clue.
The British Empire, I think we can take away from this. They were just bastards. I mean, bastards of their time, but bastards.
Yes, that's true. That's
true.
I
mean, the history of the British Empire is fascinating, and the history of the British Empire in the Raj is fascinating. And I think that's probably what makes your books, apart from the stories and the plots and the genius of Death in the East. Sort of, now, honestly, you're honestly, you're locked-room mysteries. Locked-room mysteries fascinate me, and we don't have enough time to talk about it. I'm absolutely gutted because
I was talking about karaoke.
No, and anybody who can pull off a locked-room mystery is a genius. It's not just you. I'm not just calling it you.
Well, certainly not me.
I'm bewildered by it.
I like you. I've always wanted to write one. I don't know how long. You can cut me off whenever. But the new book, Death in the East, does have. It started off as my tribute to Agatha Christie because I wanted to write a locked room mystery. It just took me 5 years to come up with something that worked, that hadn't been done. But very quickly the book sort of morphed into something more. It sort of became my commentary on what's going on in Britain and what it means to be British. So half of the book is set in India, and half of the book is set in 1905 in the East End of London. At a time when Jewish immigration from Eastern Europe was a huge issue, and the press that today reacts towards Muslims was reacting towards Jews with exactly the same language, and I just felt I had to make a comment on what was going on, and this book whilst being a locked room mystery, is also my commentary on what I think Britain should be and what Britain is when it's at its best.
As I said, it's a wonderful book. I obsess about the mystery side of it because I'd love to be able to write one and know that I can't.
Should be, well.
But the book itself is just is a brilliant. It's a beautiful book. Basically, and everything you've just said. It's so worth a read. But so is the entire series, and it feels to me that the series builds towards it. And it wouldn't be the book it is without it. So I think everyone needs to read all of it. We've got about 30 seconds over. I'm hoping I can still get this on Instagram somehow. But if I go any further, then I'm fairly sure I won't. So I'm going to say thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
No,
and
thank you.
We'll talk again soon.
Cheers. Look after yourself.
Cheers. Bye.